be prepared. What is about to happen this weekend isn't just another transit. It isn't just another energy shift. What the sky is doing right now hasn't happened in this exact configuration in living memory, and most people, they have absolutely no idea what is barreling toward them. Today, Saturday, June 20th, the planet Uranus locks into an exact square with the lunar nodes. And when it does, reality as you know it splits in two. Not metaphorically, not poetically. Your life before this weekend and your life after it will not be the same timeline. Something is about to snap, and once it does, there is no gluing it back together. But here's the thing. Most people are completely missing. The Uranus square isn't even the first domino. It is the third. Two other fated events are stacking on top of each other right now, building pressure like tectonic plates grinding in silence. And together, these three plot twists are engineering the most volatile spiritual corridor of the entire year. And if you've been feeling a strange buzzing in your nervous system lately, an almost electric restlessness under your skin that you can't explain, keep watching. Because there is one very specific reason this is happening to your body right now, and I'll explain it later. So, stick around. Because before we get to that, you need to understand why these next 72 hours are unlike anything we've experienced this year, and why what is unfolding right now carries a weight that will echo through the rest of 2026 and beyond. The universe just loaded 3 bullets into the chamber. Most weeks have one big transit, maybe 2. This week has 3, and they're not random. They're sequential. They're building on each other like acts in a story that was written long before any of us were born. Think of it this way. The cosmos doesn't waste energy. When you see this many powerful alignments stacked into the span of just 11 days, it is not coincidence. It is architecture. Something is being constructed, dismantled, and rebuilt all at the same time. The first plot twist already landed. The second one strikes today. And the third, the big one, the one that cracks the timeline wide open, hits today. Each one triggers the next. Each one makes the next one hit harder. And by the time you realize what has happened, you'll already be standing in a completely different version of your life. Most people will feel it, but won't understand it. They'll chalk it up to stress, to bad sleep, to just one of those weeks. But you're here. And that means you're already sensing that this is something far bigger than a rough patch. So, let's break down all 3 plot twists. Because once you see how they connect, everything you've been feeling lately will suddenly make sense. The escape hatch you almost didn't notice. June 9th. The first fated event already happened. And if you missed it, don't worry. Its energy is still very much alive. On June 9th, Venus and Jupiter met in an exact conjunction at 25 degrees Cancer. The lesser benefic and the greater benefic merging in the sign where Jupiter is exalted. That is not just rare. That is cosmically extravagant. And here's what makes this the hidden genius of the entire month. The universe placed this conjunction before the chaos on purpose. It is a lifeboat loaded onto the ship before the storm hits. It is an emotional anchor dropped deep into your foundation, so that when the waves come crashing in, you have something to hold on to. Cancer rules the home. It rules family, emotional safety, the womb of your inner world. And when Venus and Jupiter fused together in this sign, they activated something ancient inside you, a remembering, a quiet, almost primal knowing that no matter what happens out there, you have a safe place in here. Maybe you felt it. Maybe around that time you had an unexpected moment of deep gratitude. Maybe someone reached out and the conversation felt strangely healing. Maybe you looked around your home, your room, your kitchen table, and for just a second, everything felt like enough. That was it. That was Jupiter and Venus wrapping you in protection you didn't even know you needed. Because the universe doesn't send the storm without first showing you where the shelter is. What makes this moment so remarkable is that the very support many people were offered arrived quietly enough to be overlooked. While the universe was extending a stabilizing hand, countless individuals were too busy chasing the next distraction to recognize what had been placed in front of them. The comfort, the emotional nourishment, the unexpected sense of peace that surfaced around June 9th was not random. It was preparation. It was a message disguised as an ordinary experience. Yet many failed to understand its significance. They moved past it without realizing that the feeling of connection, gratitude, or emotional safety emerging during that period was meant to become a resource for the days ahead. It was as if life whispered, "Remember this, hold on to this, because circumstances are about to test your ability to remain grounded." Those who allowed themselves to soften, those who accepted support instead of carrying every burden alone, those who paused long enough to receive rather than constantly produce, may discover that they have already developed a resilience they do not yet recognize. The emotional foundation established during that earlier alignment now serves a purpose far greater than simple comfort. It becomes the shelter that supports you as the next chapter begins to unfold. Because while Venus and Jupiter were strengthening your inner world, another force was quietly approaching, one carrying a very different kind of lesson. The atmosphere changes now. The story shifts direction. The focus moves from protection to exposure. Today, June 19th, Chiron leaves Aries and enters Taurus for the first time since 1977. Among all the conversations surrounding current astrology, this transition has received surprisingly little attention. Yet for many people, it may prove to be one of the most personally significant developments of the entire period. Chiron, often described as the wounded healer, completes an 8-year journey through Aries and begins a completely new cycle in Taurus. The implications of that movement reach far beyond a simple change of signs. During its passage through Aries, Chiron consistently confronted questions surrounding identity, independence, courage, and the right to exist authentically. For nearly a decade, the collective healing process centered on discovering who we are beneath expectations, beneath conditioning, beneath the roles we inherited. That work does not disappear, but beginning today, the focus changes dramatically. The wound shifts location. The healing journey enters new territory. The question is no longer centered on personal identity. Instead, it turns towards something many people find even more unsettling. What truly belongs to you? What creates genuine stability? What remains valuable when external circumstances begin changing? Taurus governs the material dimension of life. It speaks to resources, finances, physical well-being, security, and self-worth. As Chiron enters this terrain, hidden vulnerabilities connected to those themes begin rising toward awareness. There is another detail that deserves attention. The last time Chiron entered Taurus was 1926. What followed in the years afterward included events that profoundly reshaped humanity's relationship with financial security, including the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. This does not mean history is destined to repeat itself in identical form. Astrology does not operate through literal duplication. Yet the symbolic pattern remains striking. The archetypal lesson emerging now resembles the lesson humanity faced then. Chiron in Taurus exposes the fragile assumptions upon which people build their sense of safety. It challenges the belief that possessions equal value. It questions the idea that financial certainty can define personal worth. It reveals weaknesses hidden inside systems many have trusted without question. Housing, savings, retirement plans, economic structures all become mirrors, reflecting deeper emotional attachments to security. Many people are already sensing this shift. Perhaps recent weeks have brought an unexpected change in financial circumstances. Perhaps a familiar expense suddenly feels heavier than before. Perhaps you have looked at numbers that once reassured you and discovered they no longer provide the same sense of comfort. For others, the experience may be less visible, yet equally powerful. There may be an underlying feeling that something once dependable no longer feels entirely stable. A subtle awareness that the ground beneath your feet contains cracks you had not noticed before. This is how Chiron often operates. It does not always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it enters through quiet discomfort, through questions that refuse to disappear, through realizations that challenge long-held assumptions. Yet its purpose is not destruction. Its purpose is revelation. Chiron asks a question that many spend years avoiding. If every external measure of success disappeared tomorrow, what would remain untouched? What part of you possesses value independent of income, possessions, status, or circumstance? For many people, the wound connected to Taurus began early in life. Experiences may have taught them that security could vanish without warning. That comfort was temporary. That loss was always waiting around the corner. These lessons often shape adult behavior in profound ways. Some respond by accumulating and holding tightly to everything they can control. Others move in the opposite direction, unconsciously sabotaging stability because abundance itself feels unsafe. Deep within, there may be a belief that gaining too much only guarantees future loss. Chiron now brings these hidden patterns into the light, not as punishment, but as an opportunity for healing that has been postponed for far too long. And Taurus approaches healing differently than many other signs. This is not an intellectual process. It is not solved through analysis alone. Taurus belongs to the earth. It teaches through embodiment, through presence, through consistency, through the gradual experience of proving that safety can exist. Healing arrives through the body, through physical reality, through learning that it is possible to remain rooted even when uncertainty exists. Yet what transforms this transit from meaningful to explosive is its timing. Chiron enters Taurus less than 12 hours before another major event reaches exactness. One transit exposes the weakness in the structure. The next introduces the force that moves directly through it. Chiron reveals the fracture line. Uranus activates it. And this brings us to the moment toward which everything has been building. Saturday, June 20th, at 3:50 in the morning UTC, Uranus positioned at 3 degrees Gemini forms an exact square to the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. This alignment represents the culmination of the sequence that has been unfolding throughout the month. The tension becomes undeniable. The pressure reaches its peak. Within evolutionary astrology, a planet forming a square to the lunar nodes creates what is known as a skipped step. This concept describes a karmic lesson that has remained unresolved, avoided, postponed, or abandoned across multiple lifetimes. It represents unfinished business seeking completion. It signifies a point where growth cannot continue until something previously neglected is finally acknowledged. And as this exact square perfects, both within individuals and within the collective, a profound turning point begins to emerge, one that prepares the ground for everything that comes next. There are moments in the evolutionary journey when standing still becomes more painful than moving forward. Yet moving forward feels impossible because something inside remains attached to what is already ending. This is the hidden tension behind what evolutionary astrologers describe as a skipped step. The soul arrives at a threshold where neither direction feels comfortable. The past no longer provides growth, yet the future remains unfamiliar territory. As a result, pressure accumulates. Internal conflicts intensify. Questions that have been postponed begin demanding answers. What was once manageable becomes unbearable. The distance between who you have been and who you are becoming grows so wide that eventually something must give way. And according to the symbolism of today's alignment, that moment of release arrives now. The force initiating the breakthrough is Uranus, the planetary archetype associated with awakening, liberation, disruption, and sudden revelation. Uranian energy rarely asks for cooperation. It does not negotiate with outdated structures. It does not wait for perfect timing. Its role is to expose where life has become stagnant and then introduce change with a speed that can feel shocking. Many people imagine transformation as a gradual process, yet Uranus often operates differently. Instead of opening a door, it removes the entire wall that once contained the room. Instead of presenting a carefully organized plan, it introduces circumstances that make the old plan irrelevant. The result is an unmistakable shift in perception. Suddenly, the reality that seemed permanent no longer feels stable. The assumptions that once guided decisions lose their authority. The version of yourself that functioned within a previous chapter begins feeling increasingly incompatible with the future emerging ahead. What makes this particular alignment especially significant is that Uranus is not forming its square to the lunar nodes from an ordinary position. It occupies what traditional astrologers refer to as the north bending. This detail matters because it changes how the energy expresses itself. Rather than remaining confined to private reflection, the symbolism suggests outward manifestation. The lessons do not stay hidden within the inner world. They seek visible expression through events, circumstances, interactions, and developments unfolding in daily life. This is why the coming days may feel unusually active. What begins as an inner realization can quickly appear as an external occurrence. Unexpected conversations may alter the direction of a relationship. Sudden information may arrive that changes an important decision. Plans that seem secure may dissolve without warning. Technological disruptions, communication issues, surprising announcements, and unforeseen developments may emerge seemingly out of nowhere. One chapter closes while another opens almost simultaneously. Endings and beginnings overlap. What disappears creates space for what arrives next. For some people, these experiences may appear random. Yet, from an astrological perspective, they reflect the visible expression of a deeper process already underway. This also helps explain the unusual sensations many have been describing recently. Long before major changes become visible, the nervous system often senses them. Perhaps you have noticed a persistent feeling of restlessness. Perhaps sleep has felt different. Perhaps your thoughts have been moving more quickly than usual. Perhaps there has been an electrical quality beneath ordinary experiences, as though part of you knows something is approaching even though your conscious mind cannot yet identify it. According to the symbolism of Uranus, this is not necessarily anxiety in the traditional sense. It can represent adjustment. It can reflect the body's attempt to synchronize with emerging realities before they fully arrive. Uranus has been moving through Gemini, a sign deeply connected with information, communication, language, learning, mental processing, and the nervous system itself. As Uranian energy interacts with Gemini, it accelerates change in the way information is received, interpreted, and integrated. Thought patterns evolve. Communication habits transform. Perspectives that once felt unquestionable become open to revision. This is not merely about receiving new ideas. It is about changing the very framework through which reality is interpreted. The mind itself enters a period of reorganization. Meanwhile, the lunar nodes define the evolutionary direction of the lesson. The South Node in Virgo symbolizes familiar strategies, habits, and coping mechanisms that once provided security but may now limit growth. Virgo seeks precision. It analyzes, it categorizes, it attempts to reduce uncertainty through preparation and control. At its healthiest, this energy creates order and effectiveness. Yet when taken to extremes, it can become trapped in endless analysis. It can create the illusion that every variable must be understood before action becomes possible. It can convince people that enough planning will eliminate unpredictability altogether. Opposite this point stands the North Node in Pisces, representing the developmental path calling for expansion. Pisces asks for trust where certainty does not exist. It invites surrender to experiences that cannot be fully explained through logic alone. It reminds us that some forms of wisdom emerge through intuition, emotion, imagination, and direct experience rather than analysis. Pisces teaches that not every truth arrives through evidence and calculation. Some arrive quietly. Some reveal themselves through feeling. Some become clear only after the mind stops demanding complete control. Uranus stands directly between these evolutionary poles, creating tension that forces movement. The old Virgo methods no longer provide all the answers. Yet escaping entirely into Pisces without discernment is not the solution either. This creates the central challenge of the transit. The path forward is not found in choosing one side while rejecting the other. Instead, a completely new possibility begins emerging. A perspective not previously available. A route that could not be seen from within the limitations of the old framework. This is why the symbolism often feels like a timeline shift. The realization arrives that the choices once consuming your attention may no longer be the real choices at all. The dilemma itself changes. The future appears through a door that did not seem to exist before. During the coming days, everyone is likely to encounter this energy differently, yet few will remain untouched by it. If there is a career path, relationship, belief structure, personal identity, or life direction that has quietly outlived its purpose, the pressure surrounding it may become impossible to ignore. Situations maintained through habit rather than authenticity become increasingly unstable. Conversations may expose truths that can no longer remain hidden. External events may accelerate decisions that have been delayed for months or years. Technological issues, unexpected messages, sudden disruptions, or surprising opportunities may serve as catalysts. In some cases, the experience may be remarkably simple. A person may wake up and realize with complete certainty that returning to an old version of life is no longer possible. The clarity arrives instantly. The decision becomes obvious. The bridge to the past disappears. For those strongly connected to the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, the impact may feel especially personal. These signs are closely linked to adaptability, learning, belief systems, identity development, and changing circumstances. As a result, the current alignment may reach deeply into the foundations of daily life. Questions involving purpose, home, relationships, career direction, and worldview can undergo significant restructuring. Individuals with important placements in these signs may experience the symbolism with extraordinary intensity. What begins as a shift may feel more like a complete reorganization of reality itself. Yet even this is only part of the story, because understanding what breaks apart is only the first step. The deeper question waiting beyond this threshold is what new reality begins emerging once the old framework finally gives way. As the ripple effects continue spreading outward, each zodiac modality encounters this turning point through a different doorway, yet no one remains entirely untouched by the process. For the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, the transformation is likely to become visible through the tangible structures of life. The combination of Chiron entering Taurus and Jupiter, preparing to enter Leo before the month concludes, creates a sequence that directly challenges questions surrounding resources, creativity, confidence, and personal value. For many within these signs, it may feel as though the ground supporting familiar expectations begins shifting beneath their feet. Financial realities, long-standing assumptions about stability, and even the relationship they maintain with their own gifts and talents may enter a period of re-evaluation. Yet what makes this process so fascinating is that it does not end with uncertainty. The same cosmic movements that expose vulnerabilities also create opportunities for visibility. One moment may feel like a confrontation with insecurity, while the next presents an invitation to step into a larger role. It is as though the universe first asks whether you truly understand your worth, and then immediately provides a stage upon which that understanding must be demonstrated. Meanwhile, the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, experience the current climate through a different lens. Their role becomes less about external disruption and more about emotional leadership. While circumstances continue shifting around them, they are called to embody steadiness amid uncertainty. They become stabilizing forces within their families, friendships, workplaces, and communities. Among these signs, Cancer occupies a particularly important position. The lingering influence of the Venus and Jupiter conjunction continues radiating through Cancerian themes of emotional connection, care, belonging, and protection. As a result, many people may find themselves instinctively drawn toward Cancer energy during this period, seeking reassurance, understanding, and a reminder that safety still exists even while change unfolds. Yet perhaps the most important realization is this: the story does not end on June 20th. In fact, what occurs during this weekend represents only the beginning of a much longer unfolding process. Many people imagine significant transits as isolated events, expecting the impact to arrive and then disappear. Astrology rarely works that way. Major alignments create waves, and those waves continue traveling long after the exact aspect has passed. What unfolds now initiates a conversation that the cosmos intends to continue throughout the remainder of the month. The next chapter arrives on June 29th, when Mercury begins its retrograde journey in Cancer. This development changes the nature of the experience entirely. Instead of charging forward without reflection, the collective is invited back into contemplation. Every realization that emerged during the current period, every illusion that dissolved, every pattern that fractured, every decision made under pressure becomes material for review. Mercury retrograde asks questions that cannot be rushed. What actually happened? What did the experience reveal? Which reactions came from wisdom, and which came from fear? Were the choices made during moments of upheaval genuinely aligned with deeper truth, or were they simply attempts to escape discomfort? This phase encourages reflection rather than immediate certainty. It creates space for integration. It allows lessons that initially arrived as shocks to gradually transform into understanding. Yet the sequence continues. On June 30th, another major shift arrives as Jupiter enters Leo. If Mercury retrograde represents reflection, Jupiter entering Leo represents emergence. The symbolism changes dramatically. Jupiter leaves the protective, nurturing environment of Cancer and moves into a sign associated with visibility, creativity, self-expression, confidence, and leadership. The energy becomes outward rather than inward. It becomes radiant rather than protective. It becomes expressive rather than sheltered. This transition can be understood as the culmination of everything that preceded it. First came the emotional preparation through the Venus and Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. Then came the healing confrontation of Chiron entering Taurus. Then came the disruptive awakening of Uranus squaring the nodes. After the restructuring, after the uncertainty, after the release of outdated patterns, Jupiter in Leo introduces a new message. Step forward. Be seen. Claim your place. The symbolism is powerful because Leo rarely hides. It does not ask permission to shine. It understands that authenticity becomes most meaningful when it is expressed openly. For those who embrace the necessary changes rather than resisting them, Jupiter in Leo may feel like validation. It becomes the reward for courage, the reward for choosing growth despite uncertainty, the reward for releasing what no longer belonged in your life even when doing so felt uncomfortable. Those who trusted intuition when logic could not provide guarantees may discover opportunities emerging that were previously invisible. Jupiter in Leo often magnifies visibility. It amplifies creative expression. It encourages individuals to share what they have learned and who they have become. In many ways, it acts as a cosmic invitation to stop hiding. Yet perhaps the deepest truth within this entire sequence is that none of these transits are designed to destroy. The disruptions are not punishments. The revelations are not accidents. The instability serves a purpose. The Uranus-Node square was never about loss for the sake of loss. It was about creating space. It was about clearing away structures that could no longer support future growth. Before something new can emerge, something outdated often must be released. Before a larger vision becomes possible, the limitations of the previous chapter must become visible. This brings us to a reality many people find difficult to accept. Significant turning points rarely announce themselves in advance. They do not arrive with instructions explaining exactly when the timeline shifted. By the time you recognize the change, part of the transformation has already occurred. Decisions are made in real time. Reactions matter. Responses shape direction. The choice between fear and trust often appears in ordinary moments rather than dramatic ones. Some individuals will spend the coming days attempting to restore what has already completed its purpose. They will try to rebuild familiar structures exactly as they existed before. For a short period, those efforts may even appear successful. Yet foundations that have already been exposed cannot provide the same security they once offered. Others will respond differently. They will look at what has changed and recognize an unexpected opportunity hidden within the disruption. Rather than reconstructing the past, they will begin imagining possibilities that did not previously exist. This willingness to embrace the unknown reflects the deeper symbolism of Uranus. Innovation, discovery, freedom from outdated assumptions, the courage to create rather than merely preserve. If you have felt drawn to this message, there is a reason. Perhaps a part of you already recognizes that the future being offered now is not the safest path or the most predictable one. It is the path requiring adaptability, trust, and genuine self-worth. It asks for the intellectual flexibility symbolized by Gemini. It asks for the spiritual openness associated with Pisces. It asks for the grounded value and embodied confidence that Chiron in Taurus seeks to develop. During the next 72 hours, experiences may move quickly. Thoughts may accelerate. Emotions may shift rapidly between excitement and uncertainty. Memories may return unexpectedly. Individuals from the past may reappear. Technology may behave unpredictably. Events may seem strangely timed, arriving exactly when needed or precisely when least expected. When these moments occur, remember that not every disruption is a problem. Not every unexpected development is a setback. Sometimes change arrives because growth requires a different landscape. Sometimes uncertainty appears because a larger possibility is trying to emerge. Rather than clinging to control, allow yourself to observe. Rather than forcing immediate answers, remain present with the process. Trust that what feels unfamiliar may actually be preparation. Trust that the sensations moving through your nervous system may reflect adaptation rather than malfunction. Because the version of yourself emerging through this sequence is the very version that the next chapter has been preparing to receive. The previous timeline has already fulfilled its purpose. What lies ahead now is not a return to what was. It is an invitation into what can become. The aftershock is unfolding. The transformation is already underway. And if you have reached this moment, perhaps the most important realization of all is that you are not behind. You are not lost, and you are not standing in the wrong place. You are meeting this threshold exactly where you are meant to meet it. If this message resonated with your experience, thank you for sharing this journey. Your presence here matters more than you know. Feel free to share your reflections and personal observations in the comments. Hearing how these energies are unfolding in your life helps create a deeper conversation for everyone involved. If you would like to continue exploring these astrological insights together, consider subscribing and joining future discussions. Until our next gathering, take care of yourself, stay grounded, stay open, and continue moving forward with trust in the path that is revealing itself before you.